topic today is one that is always seems to be kind of top of mind for multiple reasons, but it's one that we here at 10 at the Top have been purposely engaged with now for about 3 years, and that is community safety. What we want to ensure as an Upstate that we have created or are creating is a culture that values both our law enforcement and our communities, all members of our community, equally. And even more than that, that everybody has a role in creating and maintaining that culture. It isn't just the responsibility of law enforcement, and it isn't just the responsibility of the community. I want to especially thank Chief Hamby. We've hosted a number of virtual Beyond the Shield sessions talking about all kinds of different topics related to law enforcement. And what I have been most impressed with is that it is very clear that there are a lot of processes and procedures in place to try to avoid some of the things that we have seen at the national level. And while certainly you can't in the moment avoid some things, there are processes to make sure that those things are incredibly rare and hopefully don't happen within the departments here.
My name is Matt Hamby. I'm the police chief in the city of Greer. I've spent my entire career at Greer Police Department right out of college. I applied all over the universe, and Greer was the agency who hired me. And I kind of told them I planned to be there a while, and I'm still there 30 years later. So I've had a lot of different roles in our police department, starting with uniform patrol. I've worked in the specialized traffic unit, investigations, operational support, professional standards, and then about almost 6 years ago, the previous chief retired on top of his game, and allowed an opportunity for me to advance and take his position. So I've been there as the chief since 2017. So I'm honored to, I think I have, I don't know about these guys and ladies, but I think I work in the best city in America. So anyway, I'm very honored to be here and also in my capacity in Greer.
You all have a very serious role and responsibility because you are really the only group who has the ability to take away someone's personal freedom.
Right.
So you often talk very well about how you deal with that responsibility. Can you share that a little bit with the group of just how you guys take that entrusted responsibility and make sure that you're doing it in a fair way?
Absolutely. So it really, for me, the way I look at it is we have, as you just said, we are the only people in our society as law enforcement officers who can remove someone from being free and take them from being a free person, and now they're incarcerated. So that is a huge piece of authority that's granted to us because we're charged with the duties of enforcing laws. But with that authority comes tremendous responsibility. I like to start that responsibility in my role at the very beginning of someone's career. So when we're making decisions about hiring people, we have to be extremely careful and very thorough to ensure that we are only hiring people into our agency who will eventually carry that tremendous authority. But I have to make sure that the standards and the values that we have as an agency in Greer match what the intentions are or the heart of that person who is a candidate to be employed with us. So we have a tremendously difficult, I'll just call it difficult, process to even be hired at Greer Police Department, and I'm sure the other agencies represented here today will be very similar to us, but it would take me probably 5 or 10 minutes just to explain the hiring process. But basically, if you've ever done anything that you're ashamed of in your life, there's a good chance we're going to figure it out. And so, it's not that we're looking for perfect people. There is no such thing. We're all imperfect, and I'm definitely one of the most imperfect people around. But what's in your heart? Why are you getting into this field? What is your motivation? What is your goal? So it all starts there. And then, once someone becomes part of our team, we have to make sure that we provide the best training, and not just the initial training of how to be a police officer, but it's not just how to do this or how to do that. I know all of our processes, but also the values that our agency represents, the character of our, the internal culture that we establish at our police department. But we have to have a really good set of policies that are current with modern trends in policing. And then I think when people come on to our agency and begin working, they realize, they'll look around and they'll see, look, I have to get out there and get out of my car, interact with the community. The goal is for the community to work with us and believe in us. And the only way they can do that is if we know each other. And there has to be some effort, or a lot of effort, that we put in to interact with our community. And establish that trust, because if we lose that trust, we can no longer function as an agency. We're done. We have to have the support and the understanding and the trust of our community, because we have to go in to certain situations which often are not pretty scenarios, and we have to take action. Sometimes removing someone's freedom, and if we have a neighborhood who's got someone wreaking havoc on that neighborhood, and that is the focal problem of that neighborhood. If the neighbors that live there know what we're doing, they trust us, they believe in us, they will totally support us for being, surgically intense with removing that person from that neighborhood and putting them, charging them appropriately. So, we look at this as sort of like a partnership, and we literally believe that partnership exists with the community and then the professional law enforcement officers.
If you have examples of communities that you've worked with, or that your departments have worked with, where you have seen a reduction in crime because there's been community redevelopment and a focus on, maybe not specifically on community safety, but a focus on making that a nicer place for people to live, and then therefore it being safer is a result of that.
I'm fortunate enough to have one of our council members, Mr. Booker, here today, so he'll know exactly what I'm referring to. But we have a neighborhood or a community called Needmore. It's close to our downtown area. It's an area that was probably, most of the houses were built probably in the 1950s, somewhere in there, maybe 60s. And it's a very diverse neighborhood. And most of and historically, there is a very significant African-American citizen base there. But there are a lot of people who live in that neighborhood who have been there forever. And they absolutely take pride in their neighborhood. But going back towards the beginning of my career, that was a very high crime area. We had a mixture of the homeowners who've lived for generations in that neighborhood, and then we also have an apartment complex that it kind of sits right in the middle of it. That's has a lot of Section 8 residents who live there. So a lot of those people were in and out, in and out, in and out. They did not have that same level of pride in that neighborhood that the other residents had. But we have some very strong leaders who live in that neighborhood, and over time they have made significant effort in getting improvements to the neighborhood, such as street paving, curb and gutter work. They've got grants through the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority to have a lot of structural improvements to a lot of the homes there. So that neighborhood has stood up against the bad elements who were causing havoc in their neighborhood over the years. And it's been a long, long struggle, but I'm pleased to say that's actually one of the safest neighborhoods in our city these days. But it's been a partnership with those leaders in the community who weren't going to tolerate living in that environment without some interaction with the police department. They've partnered with us. During my whole career, we've been working with them and continue to do that. But that is a community filled with some great, great people who really do care about their neighborhood. And they've been very open to work with us. They've held us accountable as a police department, and they absolutely will let us know when they're not happy with someone who's moved in and causing all kind of problems, having parties out in their yard, burning stuff in a barrel, and blasting music, selling drugs. We've had violent crime over the years there, but all that stuff, the environment there is so much better than it's ever been. And a lot of those original residents, back at the beginning, they're still there, and they're seem to be very happy and pleased. But it's been a struggle, and it's been worth it. So that's a great example, is the Need More community.
How do we, create, an environment that we want, anyone, but most especially, African American or Hispanic or women, or other minorities, to get into law enforcement with the idea that people who you want to have a wide array of cultures within your department because your communities have a wide array of cultures.
I truly do believe that, and I didn't come up with this, okay, but I've learned it, and I truly believe in it, that your law enforcement agency should somewhat, the goal would be to reflect the diversity of your community. So my community in Greer we have about a 15% African American population and about 16% Hispanic, less than 2 or 3% Asian or other. And the rest is white. So, but we do, that's 30%, more than 30% who in our city who are some type of minority. So we're not even close to that in our police department. And I don't hide that. That's not a secret. It is absolutely one of my focal priorities as a police chief to try to change that. We have had numerous African Americans over the years work at our agency, but these days people move around, they leave, they'll get out of the profession or they'll change agencies. We've hired a few that just didn't make it, and it has nothing to do with what race they are. It's the fact that it's a struggle to, no matter what race or anything you are, but it's a tough career. Now, 2015, if you look back, that was sort of like a mark in time where everything sort of changed. That was Ferguson, Missouri. Okay, and then there was a series of bad events that occurred, Baltimore, Maryland, New York City, North Charleston, South Carolina. The list goes on and on. There was sort of a series of bad events that involved law enforcement. George Floyd obviously was one of probably the worst that we've ever seen. And that, to me, seemed like a very definite point in time where the applications just went down tremendously all across the board, not just one minority or white people. Everybody has stopped applying. So, if we had we usually run applicant pools because we run them through all these processes together. So we used to have a pool that would be 65, 70 people if you had 1 or 2 openings. And now, I think this last pool we had 14 people. And then, let me give an example. Here's another challenge. The first 2 steps that you have to do at our agency if you apply is to take a written exam and a physical agility course. Well, out of the 14, I can promise you about 9 will show up. The rest won't even reply to your emails, phone calls. They just vanish. They just ghost us, you know? So the 9 will show up, 2 or 3 or 4 may fail those tests. So we're only left with a handful that will start with the interview process after that. And then we'll flush out maybe 4/5 of those. So we'll be left with maybe 1, maybe 2. Yeah, really good applicant pool, we might get 3. So, that's the struggles that we are facing right now. Recruiting and hiring and retention adds to the recruiting problem. But, that is front and center all the time. All of the seminars that all of us police people go to, probably more of the topics than anything are recruiting and retention. That seems to be what we do now.
So I hope you have a great weekend, and again, thank you all for being with us today.